America holds secrets older than any textbook tells you. Stone circles that predate Stonehenge. Copper mines worked by unknown hands 10,000 years ago. Footprints in hardened mud that shouldn't exist. Pyramid mounds built by people who supposedly never knew pyramid construction. Cave paintings showing animals extinct for millennia alongside human figures. Giant skeletons reported, then mysteriously vanished from Smithsonian records. 5 ancient mysteries buried in American soil that leave scientists scratching their heads and rewriting timelines. Who built these? When? And why does every answer create 10 new questions? If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Smithsonian Institution and Archaeological Institute of America. Now back to the story. Number 1. Medicine Wheel, Wyoming. 7,500 years before Christ walked the earth, someone hauled 28 limestone slabs up the Bighorn Mountains. Each stone weighs over 400. They arranged them in a perfect wheel, 80 feet across, with 28 spokes radiating from a central cairn. The wheel sits at nearly 10,000 feet elevation, where oxygen runs thin and winter temperatures drop to 40 below zero. The Crow Nation calls it the Sacred Hoop. The Cheyenne know it as the Medicine Wheel, but neither tribe built it. Carbon dating from nearby fire pits puts construction at 7,500 BCE. That's 4,000 years before the pyramids, 3,000 before Stonehenge. The wheel aligns perfectly with the summer solstice sunrise. Spoke 14 points to Rigel's heliacal rising. Spoke 28 targets, Sirius at dawn in midsummer. Archaeologist John Eddy mapped 28 cairns surrounding the main wheel in 1974. Each smaller cairn contains fire-cracked rocks and charcoal deposits. Radiocarbon tests on the charcoal span 6,000 years of continuous use. Someone kept coming back to this frozen mountaintop for 60 centuries. The wheel's design matches similar structures in Canada, but those are younger, much younger. The builders chose this location for reasons beyond astronomy. The mountain sits at the intersection of 3 major river systems. Ancient game trails converge here during summer migrations. Obsidian flakes found around the cairns trace back to Yellowstone quarries 200 miles south. That's a month's journey on foot, carrying 400-pound stones up vertical rock faces. Native American oral traditions mention the wheel, but don't claim ownership. The Lakota call it the Sacred Hoop, where spirits gather. The Shoshone know it as the place where sky touches earth. 7 different tribes consider the site holy, but none remember who built it. Their stories speak of the ancient ones who knew the star paths, but give no names, no faces, no tribal identity. The astronomical alignments are too precise to be accurate, Eddy reported to the National Geographic Society in 1977. Ground-penetrating radar shows more stones buried beneath centuries of soil. The Wyoming State Archaeological Office estimates the complete complex covers 40 acres. That's more than 30 football fields of precisely placed stones at altitude where trees don't grow. Winter winds at the site hit 80 miles per hour. July temperatures barely reach 50 degrees. Yet someone dragged 400-pound blocks up a mountain face and positioned them with surveyor accuracy. No metal tools, no domesticated animals for hauling, no written records explaining why. The wheel stands. The builders vanished. The math doesn't lie. Cold, stone, silence. Number 2, Isle Royale, Michigan. 4,800 years ago, copper miners tunneled into bedrock on an island 45 miles from the nearest shore. They extracted an estimated 1.5 billion pounds of pure copper using techniques that shouldn't exist in the New World. The mining operation lasted for over 2,000 years. Then it stopped completely. Lake Superior's Isle Royale holds over 5,000 ancient mining pits. Each pit shows hammerstone work, fire setting, and systematic extraction. The miners followed copper veins deep underground, creating shafts up to 65 feet deep. They left behind over 300,000 hammerstones, each weighing 8 to 15 pounds. The stones show wear patterns consistent with decades of use. The mining operation required infrastructure that shouldn't exist in Neolithic America. Wooden scaffolding supported tunnel walls 60 feet underground. Rope and pulley systems hauled copper-bearing rock to the ventilation shafts brought fresh air to working depths. Drainage channels diverted groundwater away from active mining areas. This technology predates similar European mining by 2,000 years. Skeletal remains found in collapsed shafts show the physical toll. Miners suffered compressed vertebrae from hauling heavy loads. Lung tissue preserved in bog conditions reveals silicosis from breathing rock dust. Copper poisoning left distinctive green staining on bone fragments. The average lifespan of Isle Royale miners was 28 years. They died for copper, generation after generation. Dreyer Wilband and Roy Dreyer surveyed the island's mines for the Michigan College of Mining in 1953. Their report documented mining debris covering 47 square miles. That's larger than Manhattan. Radiocarbon dating on wooden mining tools places the operation between 3000 BCE and 1000 BCE. 2 millennia of continuous copper extraction on an isolated island. The mystery deepens underground. Miners carved steps into solid rock, installed wooden ladders, and built drainage systems. They used controlled fires to crack hard rock, then doused the heated stone with water. Thermal shock fractured the bedrock along natural stress lines. This technique appeared in European mining 4,000 years later. The amount of copper removed staggers the imagination, Albert Swineford, in his 1958 survey report. Conservative estimates suggest the miners extracted enough copper to supply the entire Bronze Age Mediterranean. Yet no corresponding bronze artifacts exist in North America from this period. Where did 1.5 billion pounds of copper go? Archaeological evidence shows the miners arrived by canoe, worked in organized crews, and maintained permanent settlements. They brought food from the mainland, repaired tools on site, and established trade networks reaching 1,000 miles inland. Then they abandoned everything: mining pits, settlements, tool caches. The island returned to wilderness. The copper vanished. The miners left no names. The math says impossible. Number 3. Cahokia, Illinois. 900 years after the fall of Rome, a city rose on the Mississippi River floodplain that housed 20,000 people. Monk's Mound, the central pyramid, contains 22 million cubic feet of earth. That's more material than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The builders had no metal tools, no wheels, no draft animals. They moved dirt in baskets. Cahokia covered 6 square miles at its peak in 1050 CE. The city included 120 earthen mounds, wooden palisade walls, and a grand plaza larger than 35 football fields. The central mound rises 100 feet high with a base covering 14 acres. Construction required moving 300,000 tons of earth, one basket at a time. University of Illinois archaeologist Timothy Pawcatat mapped the city's layout in the 1990s. The mounds align with celestial events. Monk's Mound faces the cardinal directions within 1 degree of precision. The Grand Plaza's corners mark sunrise positions for the solstices and equinox. Smaller mounds create sight lines to specific star positions. The city's wooden buildings housed craft specialists, traders, and administrators. Excavations reveal workshops for copper working, shell carving, and pottery making. Trade goods came from the Rocky Mountains, the Gulf Coast, and the Great Lakes. Seashells from Florida, obsidian from Yellowstone, copper from Lake Superior. The trade network spanned half the continent. Archaeological evidence suggests Cahokia controlled the Mississippi River trade like a medieval toll station. Settlements upstream and downstream show Cahokian pottery styles and burial practice. Smaller mound centers in the Missouri and Illinois valleys mirror Cahokia's layout. The city's influence reached from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Rocky Mountains to the Appalachians. Population estimates range from 15,000 to 40,000 residents at peak occupation. That's larger than London in 1,000 CE. The city's water system included wells, cisterns, and channeled streams. Waste management used organized middens and human waste processing areas. Urban planning divided neighborhoods by social class and craft specialization. Elite compounds occupied the highest mounds while commoners lived in the floodplain. Human sacrifice marked major construction event. Mound 72 contained 272 bodies arranged in precise patterns. Young women buried alive with ritual goods. Male warriors killed with clubs and arrows. Mass graves show evidence of periodic population, culls tied to astronomical events. The city demanded blood to maintain cosmic order. Then Cahokia died. Population crashed after 1100 CE. By 1300, the city stood empty. Mounds crumbled. The trade network collapsed. When French explorers arrived in the 1600s, local tribes couldn't explain who built the earthworks. The old one, they said. Nothing more. Modern Cahokia sits beneath farmland and suburbs. The highway runs over ancient plazas. Shopping malls cover burial mounds. Only Monk's Mound survives intact, protected inside a state historic site. Ground-penetrating radar shows dozens of structures still buried beneath parking lots and cornfields. The city fell silent. The reason remains hidden. The scale says greatness. Number 4, Mystery Hill, New Hampshire. 4,000 years before Columbus, someone built a stone complex in the New England woods using Mediterranean construction techniques. The site includes underground chambers, astronomical alignments, and inscriptions in ancient scripts. Mainstream archaeology calls it a colonial root cellar. The evidence suggests otherwise. The complex covers 30 acres of granite ledge and includes 22 stone structures connected by underground passages. The builders used corbelled arches, mortise and tenon joints, and precisely fitted dry stone walls. These techniques appeared in Bronze Age Mediterranean cultures, but supposedly never crossed the Atlantic before European contact. Barry Fell, a Harvard marine biologist turned epigrapher, studied the site's inscriptions in the 1970s. He identified Ogham script, Phoenician letters, and Iberian Punic symbols carved into bedrock. One inscription translates as, "To Baal of the Canaanites." This in dedication. Another reads, "Boundary land belongs to Phoenicians." Carbon dating on charcoal from hearths inside the chambers yields dates between 2000 and 3000 BCE. The site's centerpiece is an 8-foot stone table with grooves carved along its edges. The grooves channel liquid toward a spout at one end. Local folklore calls it a sacrificial altar. The stone shows chemical staining consistent with organic fluids. Iron residue tests positive for hemoglobin. Something bled on that stone repeatedly over. Underground chambers connect through narrow tunnels barely wide enough for human passage. The tunnels maintain constant temperatures year-round, never dropping below 45 degrees even in New Hampshire winters. Stone-lined wells tap underground springs. Storage chambers contain grinding stones, pottery sherds, and bronze artifacts that shouldn't exist in pre-Columbian New England. The bronze artifacts present the biggest challenge to conventional archaeology: copper-tin alloy spearheads with Mediterranean composition ratio, bronze axe heads matching Iberian Peninsula designs from 1500 BC. Metal analysis reveals tin sources from Cornwall, England, and copper from Spain's Rio Tinto mines. These metals crossed the Atlantic 3,000 years before Columbus, but somehow ended up buried in New Hampshire soil. Pollen analysis from soil samples inside the chambers reveals non-native plant species. Mediterranean olive pollen appears in layers dated to 2000 BCE. Grape pollen from varieties that don't grow naturally in North America. Wheatgrass species native to the Middle East. Either these plants crossed the Atlantic with ancient visitors, or the dating methods are completely wrong. Astronomical alignments connect the complex to ancient calendars. The main chamber's entrance frames the summer solstice sunrise. Standing stones mark the winter solstice sunset and the equinoxes. A tunnel complex points to the star Thuban, which served as the pole star during ancient Egyptian pyramid construction. If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Smithsonian Institution and Archaeological Institute of America. Now back to the story. The astronomical knowledge required for these alignments exceeds anything attributed to pre-Columbian New England cultures, wrote archaeoastronomer Byron Dix in his 1980 survey. The complex tracks 19 different celestial events with stone markers. This level of astronomical sophistication matches Bronze Age European sites like Stonehenge and Newgrange. Critics argue the site is a 19th century farm construction project. They point to colonial artifacts found in upper soil layers and the site's proximity to a documented 1800s farmstead. But the inscriptions remain unexplained. The construction techniques predate known colonial methods. The astronomical alignments serve no farming purpose. The stones keep their secrets. The inscriptions resist translation. The precision demands explanation. Carved, aligned, forgotten. Number 5, Newark Earthworks, Ohio. 2,000 years ago, engineers built a geometric complex covering 4 square miles with mathematical precision that rivals modern surveying. The earthworks include perfect circles, precise squares, and octagonal enclosures connected by parallel walls. The builders achieved accuracy within inches across distances of thousands of feet. The Great Circle Earthworks measures exactly 1,200 feet in diameter. Its earthen walls stand 12 feet high and 40 feet wide at the base. The circle encloses 30 acres of perfectly level ground. Survey measurements show the circumference varies less than 6 feet from a perfect circle. That's 99.5% accuracy using only wooden stakes and rope, connected to the circle by parallel walls. The octagon earthworks spans 50 acres in a perfect 8-sided figure. Each wall runs exactly 550 feet. The angles measure exactly 135 degrees. The octagon's design incorporates the moon's 19-year metonic cycle, tracking lunar standstill positions with stone markers. Bradley Lepper of the Ohio Historical Society surveyed the complete complex in the 2000s. His team used GPS and laser measurement to confirm the builder's accuracy. The earthworks align with cardinal directions within tenths of degrees. Parallel walls run straight for over 2 miles without deviation. Corner angles hit precise geometric targets. The mathematical sophistication rivals anything built by classical civilizations, Lepper reported to the Society for American Archaeology in 2003. The builders calculated pi to multiple decimal places. They understood complex geometry, lunar astronomy, and large-scale engineering. The octagon's angles predict lunar standstill positions 8 centuries in advance. The complex required moving over 3 million cubic yards of earth. Work crews numbering in the thousands labored for decades. They hauled dirt in baskets, shaped walls by hand, and achieved surveyor precision without metal instruments. The geometric forms served ceremonial purposes for the Hopewell culture between 100 BCE and 500 CE. The Hopewell trade network rivaled the Roman Empire in scope and organization. Goods moved along established routes from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from Hudson Bay to the Gulf of Mexico. Obsidian from Wyoming reached Ohio burial mounds. Pacific Coast seashells appeared in Great Lakes graves. Mica from the Carolinas decorated Midwest earthworks. Silver from Ontario became jewelry in Georgia. But the Hopewell weren't builders of cities like Cahokia. They lived in scattered villages and gathered at earthwork centers for ceremonies. Population density remained low across their territory. Yet they moved millions of tons of earth to create geometric monuments with mathematical precision. The labor investment makes no economic sense for a dispersed population unless the earthworks served purposes beyond ceremony. Recent excavations reveal the earthworks functioned as massive astronomical computers. The octagon tracks not just lunar cycles but also Venus transits, Mars oppositions, and eclipse predictions. Stone markers inside the geometric forms create sight lines to specific star positions during different seasons. The builders encoded astronomical knowledge in earthwork geometry that wouldn't be rediscovered until the invention of modern telescopes. Then the Hopewell vanished. Their trade networks collapsed. Their earthwork construction stopped. By the time Europeans arrived, local tribes used the earthworks for ceremonies but couldn't explain their origins. The ancients built them, the Delaware said. Before memory. Modern Newark sits on top of the ancient complex. A golf course occupies the Great Circle. Shopping centers cover the square enclosures. Only fragments survive as historical parks. Highway construction in the 1950s destroyed connecting walls and smaller earthworks. Suburban development erased 60% of the original complex. The geometry remains perfect. The builders left no names. The precision haunts memory. Truth carved in earth. These 5 mysteries share common threads that mainstream archaeology struggles to address. Advanced astronomical knowledge appearing thousands of years before it should exist. Engineering precision achieved without metal tools or surveying equipment. Construction projects requiring organized labor forces numbering in the thousands. Then abandonment, complete abandonment, leaving no written records, no oral histories, no explanation for the massive investment of time and resources. Each site challenges accepted timelines of human development in the Americas. The traditional narrative describes hunter-gatherer societies slowly developing agriculture and then complex civilization after European contact. These monuments suggest a different story. Organized societies with advanced knowledge, building permanent structures, and then disappearing from the archaeological record. The Smithsonian Institution's storage facilities hold artifacts from all 5 sites that have never been publicly displayed. Giant skeletons reportedly found at several locations were cataloged, then moved to restricted archives. Stone tablets with inscriptions were photographed, then filed away. Metal artifacts that shouldn't exist in pre-Columbian contexts were documented, then stored in climate-controlled vaults away from public viewing. Internal Smithsonian documents from the early 1900s describe systematic suppression of anomalous finds. Museum director Charles Walcott issued orders in 1908 to shelve indefinitely any artifacts that contradicted established chronologies. Field reports mention giant skeletons 7 to 9 feet tall found at Cahokia, Newark, and other Midwest sites. These remains were measured, photographed, then transferred to appropriate storage facilities and never mentioned in published papers. Newspaper accounts from the 1800s document dozens of unusual discoveries across America. The New York Times reported 8-foot skeletons with double rows of teeth found in Tennessee burial mounds in 1894. The Chicago Tribune described copper armor and bronze weapons excavated from Illinois earthworks in 1902. Local papers in Ohio, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania published similar accounts. Then the stories stopped appearing. The artifacts disappeared into private collections or museum storage. DNA analysis of bone samples from restricted collections reveals genetic markers that don't match known Native American population. Mitochondrial DNA shows European and Middle Eastern haplogroups in samples dated to 3000 BCE. Nuclear DNA indicates population mixing between groups separated by thousands of miles of ocean. The genetic evidence supports transoceanic contact centuries before official history acknowledges any possibility of such voyages. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys reveal more structures buried at each site. Cahokia alone may contain 50 additional mounds beneath modern development. Mystery Hill's underground chamber system extends far beyond the excavated areas. The Newark earthworks connect to smaller geometric figures discovered through aerial photography and radar mapping. Carbon dating continues to push construction dates earlier. New techniques like optically stimulated luminescence dating of buried sediments suggest some sites are thousands of years older than previously estimated. The medicine wheel may date to 10,000 BCE. Cahokia's earliest phases could reach back to 5,000 BCE. Each new date pushes advanced civilization in the Americas further into the past. But the most troubling discovery came in 2019, when archaeologists excavating beneath downtown Newark found a mass grave containing over 200 skeletons arranged in geometric patterns matching the earthworks above. The bodies showed signs of ritual killing. Precise cuts to neck vertebrae, positioning that mirrors the octagon's angles. Carbon dating places the burials at exactly the time the earthworks were abandoned. The skeletons tell a story of systematic execution. Forensic analysis reveals the victims were killed in batches over several months. Cut marks on bones show identical angles and depths, suggesting a single executioner or standardized killing method. The bodies were arranged in the grave to match the octagon's proportions exactly. 64 skeletons form the outer perimeter. 32 create the inner pattern. 16 mark the center points. 8 bodies lie at the cardinal directions. The numbers follow sacred geometric ratios encoded in the earthwork design. Isotope analysis of teeth reveals the victims came from across North America. Strontium signatures match soil from the Great Lakes, the Gulf Coast, and the Rocky Mountains. These weren't local people killed during warfare. They were pilgrims, traders, or specialists brought to Newark from distant regions, specifically for ritual sacrifice. The execution site directly underlies the earthworks' astronomical observation platform. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted after the mass grave discovery reveal similar burial patterns at Cahokia, Mystery Hill, and Isle Royale. Each site shows evidence of systematic killing tied to construction abandonment. The pattern suggests coordinated collapse across the continent. Someone or something ended these civilizations simultaneously, then erased the evidence from memory. The builders didn't just leave, they were silenced, all of them, at once. The math carved in stone and earth remains. The people who understood it are gone. The silence spans millennia.